Hello and welcome to the Masonic Authors Guild International. This is Robert L.D. Cooper with Mark A. Tabert. We are Magi. Our mission is to promote the highest standards in education, research and publications relating to the global phenomenon of Freemasonry.
The first father-son Medal of Honor combination in U.S. history was Arthur and Douglas MacArthur. Both were Freemasons. Arthur MacArthur Jr. was born in Massachusetts on June 2, 1845. As a young boy, he moved with his family to Wisconsin, where his father, Arthur MacArthur Sr., served as a judge and in state government, including as lieutenant governor and for 5 days governor of Wisconsin. Arthur was 16 when the Civil War started in 1861. His father tried and failed to get him an appointment to West Point. In the summer of 1862, Sr. got Jr. an appointment as lieutenant and adjutant of the new 24th Wisconsin Infantry, a Milwaukee-based unit. As adjutant, his jobs included keeping regimental records and forming the men on the parade field. This last task was challenging, as his voice was still changing, much to the amusement of many in the ranks. The 24th went to the front and saw its first action in the Kentucky campaign at the Battle of Perryville on October 8, 1862. The men stopped laughing when young Lieutenant MacArthur performed on the battlefield. One veteran said it seemed as if Arthur had ice water in his veins. The 24th's next battle was Stone's River at the end of 1862, in which the regiment was in the thick again. At one point, Arthur told his dad, "There was a general retreat, and I wouldn't have given a snap for the Army." Despite ferocious Confederate attacks, the Federal Army held on, winning a major victory that Abraham Lincoln later said, had it been a defeat instead, the nation could have scarcely lived over. Arthur saw action in the Tullahoma campaign in the summer of 1863, but missed the fall Chickamauga campaign due to illness. When he rejoined the regiment, it was besieged with the rest of the Army of the Cumberland in Chattanooga, Tennessee. Confederates looked down on the city from the surrounding heights. The Federal commander, General George Thomas, vowed to hold the town until we starve. Relief forces came from far and wide to break the siege. Organized under the overall command of General U.S. Grant, they launched an offensive north and south of Chattanooga on November 24th, seizing Lookout Mountain and some key hills. The next morning, November 25th, the offensive was renewed, but bogged down against stiff Confederate defenses along Missionary Ridge, which towered 800 feet above the city. At 4 o'clock, a frustrated Grant sent the Army of the Cumberland into a frontal attack against Missionary Ridge. The 24th was near the center of a 2-mile-long line of Federal troops that surged toward the height. Taking the rifle pits at the base, units started up without direct orders to do so. As the 24th climbed, the color bearer got tired and took a short rest. Unfortunately, when the colors stopped, so did the unit, all under fire. Realizing the situation, and full of 18-year-old energy, Arthur MacArthur went over to the color bearer, grabbed the flag, and yelled, "On Wisconsin!" as he surged his men forward. The 24th renewed the advance and pushed the Confederates off the ridge. One of the first 2 Federal flags seen atop Missionary Ridge was that of the 24th Wisconsin. After the battle, Arthur counted 5 bullet holes in his clothes, plus some shredding to the flag from Confederate fire. Miraculously, he was untouched. In 1893, he received the Medal of Honor for his leadership under fire. More immediately, he was promoted and given command of the regiment, which he led with great distinction in the Atlanta campaign. At the Battle of Franklin, Tennessee, in November 1864, the 24th was in the thick of the fighting. "Up, Wisconsin!" Arthur commanded and led his men into the melee. He suffered 5 wounds and was carried from the field in fear of his life, but not before defeating a Confederate major in hand-to-hand combat. Arthur recovered and finished the war as a 19-year-old colonel in command of the 24th. He was famous as the boy colonel of the Union Army. After returning home, Arthur explored a law career, but soon realized his calling was in the Army. Obtaining a commission in the regular Army, he spent the next 30 years moving between posts on the frontier, Washington, D.C., and other posts in the East, making a slow climb through the ranks. Along the way, he found love. In 1874 in New Orleans, he met Mary Pinckney Hardy of Norfolk, Virginia. A year later, they married. 4 of her older brothers, all Confederate veterans of the Army of Northern Virginia, skipped the wedding. They had three sons, Arthur III in 1876, Malcolm in 1878, and Douglas on January 26, 1880. Malcolm died in 1883, but the other two lived to adulthood. Douglas was born while his dad was stationed in Little Rock, Arkansas. It was also there that Arthur joined Magnolia Lodge No. 60. Arthur was soon posted to New Mexico Territory with the family following. For young Douglas, life in the Frontier Army was quite an experience. Douglas later claimed his first memory was that of bugles, and vividly recalled in 1963 the rhythm of garrison life on the frontier. Fairly soon, Douglas made his father an inspiration and exemplar for his life. The parents recognized this and raised him with an eye toward a career in the Army. In many ways, to understand the father, Arthur, is to understand the son, Douglas. Arthur III, by the way, also took to it similarly, going to the Naval Academy and graduating in 1896. For Douglas, this all culminated in a try for an appointment to West Point in 1898. As the appointment was being worked, the war with Spain broke out. Arthur, now a general, received a senior appointment in the Expeditionary Corps going to the Philippines. Hearing this, 18-year-old Douglas came to his father asking for a position as a volunteer aide. His father turned him down and told him to pursue West Point. His reasoning? There would be other wars in the new 20th century. Prepare yourself, he told his son, and sent Douglas to pursue the West Point appointment. Arthur went on to the great success in the Philippines, serving as Governor-General for a time. But he ran afoul of William Howard Taft, and his career stalled out. Meanwhile, Douglas graduated as first captain of the class of 1903 with one of the outstanding cadet records in the history of the U.S. Military Academy. In 1904, Lieutenant General Arthur MacArthur and Mary were sent as observers to the Russo-Japanese War. They took Douglas along as an aide. After seeing the battlefront, their itinerary then expanded into an expansive tour of Asia from Japan to India, lasting nearly 18 months until late 1905. The trip changed Douglas's life. He was amazed by all he saw and realized that people were all people, no matter of race. His father took multiple opportunities to point out the region's importance. I became convinced, wrote Douglas in 1963, that the future and indeed the very existence of the United States was bound up in Asia and its island outposts. This perspective would inform the rest of his life. On September 5, 1912, Arthur MacArthur keynoted the 50th reunion of the 24th Wisconsin. On the podium, he stroked out and died. He was buried in Arlington National Cemetery. His father's death left a hole in my heart, recalled Douglas. Douglas MacArthur rose through the ranks and went to Mexico in 1914, where he supported the Veracruz expedition and made a name for himself with some daring reconnaissance trips into hostile territory. In 1916, with World War I raging and bills before Congress to expand the Army and Navy, MacArthur served as the Army's first Chief of Public Information, experience that would stand him in good stead later. Upon U.S. entry into World War I in 1917, Douglas MacArthur helped organize the 42nd Rainbow Division, made up of National Guard units from 26 states and the District of Columbia. He deployed as the Division Chief of Staff, later commanding a brigade, and the division itself immediately after the war. Like his father, he led from the front and became the most decorated American officer with 7 Silver Stars, 2 Distinguished Service Crosses, a French Croix de Guerre, and a Belgian Croix de Guerre. He also earned 2 Purple Hearts, one for surviving a nasty gassing. In 1919, retaining his rank as Brigadier General, he went to West Point as superintendent. The war had wrecked the academy and its Corps of Cadets, while the recent war showed that the curriculum needed updating. MacArthur set about modernizing the academy, reforming and broadening the education, and formalizing a cadet honor code. His term ended in 1922, and not all his reforms stuck, but today he is regarded as the founder of the modern West Point. After a succession of positions and a failed marriage lasting 5 years, in 1930 Douglas MacArthur became the youngest ever U.S. Army Chief of Staff, a position he would hold until 1935. It was the depth of the Depression, and the Army budget was cut and strained. At the same time, fascism was rising in Europe and Asia. MacArthur worked hard to ensure that the Army survived the lean years in a way that it would be ready for future conflict. In 1935, MacArthur went to the Philippines to become military advisor to the Philippine government, which had been promised independence under the Tidings-McDuffie Act. He also became Field Marshal of the Philippine Army, the only American to ever hold that rank. On the way out, he met Jean Faircloth, and they wed in 1937. A son, Arthur MacArthur IV, was born in February of 1938. Jean, by the way, was from Murfreesboro, site of the Battle of Stones River, and some of her ancestors were in units fighting the 24th Wisconsin. Shortly after arriving in the Philippines, Douglas MacArthur was made a Mason at sight in Manila Lodge No. 1. His father was now also his brother. Douglas later joined the Shriners in the early 1950s. As war clouds gathered over Asia, MacArthur was recalled from retirement in July 1941 and placed in command of U.S. Army forces in the Far East. His forces were attacked mere hours after the bombing of Pearl Harbor. The Japanese invaded in force in late December 1941 and thwarted MacArthur's strategy of defending on the beaches. As a result, he withdrew his forces to Bataan and Corregidor at the mouth of Manila Bay. This also meant taking his wife and son and leaving their apartment behind. Over the first 8 weeks of 1942, MacArthur's forces held off the Japanese. General MacArthur and his men became a symbol of Allied resistance. But Japanese successes elsewhere left Bataan and Corregidor increasingly isolated. Aware of the propaganda value to the Japanese, and facing a request from Australia for a senior American to help defend the continent, brother Franklin Roosevelt ordered MacArthur to leave the Philippines for Australia. MacArthur reluctantly complied, arriving on March 17th. "I came through," he said, "and I shall return." In Australia, Douglas received the Medal of Honor for the Philippine defense. Bataan, however, surrendered April 9th, and Corregidor on May 6th, 1942. MacArthur set about starting a counteroffensive. Starting in eastern New Guinea, his forces pushed along the coast and worked with other forces to isolate the base at Rabaul by early 1944. This victory freed MacArthur to leapfrog along New Guinea's coast toward the Philippines, which he hoped to liberate with the help of Chester Nimitz's forces coming across the Central Pacific. On October 20th, 1944, MacArthur fulfilled his pledge to return. The photo of him wading ashore at Leyte is one of the most famous of the Pacific War. He spent the rest of the war liberating the islands and preparing for the invasion of Japan. Sadly, his Manila apartment was destroyed in battle in February 1945. When Japan surrendered in 1945, MacArthur was appointed military governor with the title Supreme Commander of the Allied Powers. He took Japan's surrender and spent the next 6 years helping the country recover from the war as a modern and reformed state. The Constitution MacArthur and his staff wrote remains in effect today without amendment. MacArthur also influenced the rebuilding of Asia, especially the craft in Asia. He told an officer about how important it was to expand Freemasonry in Asia as an antidote to authoritarianism. MacArthur also permitted military mail to be used to appeal to lodges in the United States to donate unused furnishings, aprons, and other materials to lodges in Asia that had been ravaged by Japanese troops. MacArthur was placed in command when the Korean War started on June 25, 1950. After a great victory at Incheon, his forces came to grief in North Korea. After a public dispute with brother Harry Truman, MacArthur was relieved on April 11, 1951. He and his wife retired to New York City. He died April 5, 1964, and is buried in Norfolk, Virginia. Jean died in 2000 and lies next to him. Both MacArthurs lived as upright men and Masons, lives of service and honor. Said Douglas MacArthur, "Freemasonry embraces the highest moral laws and will bear the test of any system of ethics or philosophy ever promulgated for the uplift of man. Its requirements are the things that are right, including the doctrine of patriotism and brotherly love, enjoying sentiments of exalted benevolence, encouraging all that is good, kind, and charitable. And its restraints are the things that are wrong, reprobating all that is cruel and oppressive. Its observance will uplift everyone under its influence." In their time, both Arthur and Douglas MacArthur ranked among the senior-most Army officers on duty. On December 18, 1944, Douglas MacArthur received promotion to the 5-star rank of General of the Army, one of 5 officers promoted to that rank during or after World War II, alongside George C. Marshall, Hap Arnold, whose title was later changed to General of the Air Force, Dwight D. Eisenhower, and Omar Bradley. They ranked right behind General of the Army's John J. Pershing, who has since been joined in that grade posthumously by George Washington and Ulysses S. Grant. It is notable that of these officers listed, all were Freemasons except Grant and Eisenhower.